Have you ever, found yourself in a situation where you suddenly realize you are living out someone else's dream for you?
Oh, yeah. That's a heavily relatable feeling for a lot of people.
Right. Like maybe it's a career path your parents sort of gently nudged you into, or I don't know, a relationship dynamic where you're just constantly playing a role somebody else wrote for you.
And you just kind of went along with it.
Exactly. And it's this heavy, suffocating feeling. You wake up one day and just think, wait, whose life is this actually?
Yeah, that sudden realization is jarring.
It is. But I want you to take that feeling, that creeping sense of lost autonomy, and I want you to magnify it.
Yeah.
Magnify it until that someone else isn't just asking you to get a sensible accounting degree, right?
Right.
But is actively demanding that you conquer the entire globe before you even hit puberty.
Wow. I mean, that is an unimaginable scale of pressure
Right.
because we like to think of childhood as this protected, sacred space,
Yeah.
you know, a time for skin knees and making silly mistakes.
Absolutely.
But imagine what happens to the human psyche when that space is turned into a high-stakes boardroom. What happens when a child is viewed literally from the moment they can make a sound, not as a human being needing nurture, but as this high-yield, deeply monetizable asset?
That unsettling reality is exactly what we are unpacking today. Welcome to the deep dive, everyone.
Glad to be here.
Today, our mission is to look at a brilliant, highly detailed video essay. It's a review of a biographical movie that just hit cinemas in 2026.
Yeah, it's titled The King of Pop, Rise of a Global Icon.
Exactly. And it's currently sitting at a solid 7.7 rating on IMDb, which is pretty good. But it features this incredibly poignant casting choice.
Oh, this is the most fascinating part to me.
Yeah, go ahead.
The adult Michael Jackson is actually played by his real-life nephew,
Right.
which, just on a purely cinematic and psychological level, adds an entirely new, almost meta layer of complexity to the portrayal.
I mean, you're literally watching family history being reenacted by the family itself.
Exactly. They're dealing with the very legacy we're about to dissect on screen.
And the review we are using as our source material today is just fascinating because of how the narrator grounds the story. It's a YouTube-style video essay, but the creator has this very distinct, culturally specific way of contextualizing time.
Right. They don't just use standard dates.
No, instead of just saying, this happened in 1964, they anchor Michael's childhood by noting that these events took place, quote, 7 years before the liberation war of Bangladesh.
I really love that detail. It instantly reframes the whole narrative for us.
Yeah, it does, right.
Yeah. It reminds you that while global icons are manufactured and consumed on a massive worldwide scale, they're always, understood locally.
Oh, that's a great point.
For this particular narrator, Michael Jackson's rise isn't just an American pop culture milestone. It's mapped directly onto the historical timeline of their own nation's birth.
It really proves how universally pervasive this story is.
Absolutely. But beneath that massive global footprint, the essay we're analyzing isn't really just a timeline of pop history.
No, it's not.
It is a profound, often really disturbing case study in the battle for personal autonomy.
So as we get into this, I want you, the listener, to keep a question in the back of your mind. How much of ourselves do we sacrifice for success?
That's the core of it.
And what happens when that sacrifice is made for you before you even know how to tie your own shoes?
Yeah.
Let's transport ourselves back to the year 1966. We are in Gary, Indiana.
Sit in the scene.
It's a small, cramped house, and we have a young Michael Jackson standing at a window just looking outside. He sees other kids out there playing in the dirt, running around, just being normal kids, but he is strictly forbidden to join them.
That image, a child looking through a literal glass pane at the concept of a normal childhood, that's the foundational trauma of this entire narrative.
Yeah, that's a powerful way to put it.
The glass is physical, sure, but it represents a massive psychological barrier erected by his father, Joseph.
And the source paints Joseph as intensely, almost terrifyingly strict.
Oh, complete.
He forces his 5 sons into a family band, the Jackson 5, and the absolute non-negotiable priority in this household is exhaustive, grueling practice.
Right.
There is no time for play. There is no time for a normal education. It is just a relentless grind.
And we really need to talk about why that is so damaging from a developmental standpoint.
Say so?
Because play isn't just a fun extracurricular activity for children. It is the fundamental biological way they learn about the world.
Right. It's how they figure things out.
Exactly. Through play, children learn boundaries, they learn socialization, empathy, and most importantly, they develop their own independent sense of self.
Wow.
To deny a child play is to essentially amputate a crucial phase of human cognitive development.
And Michael's mother, Kat, actually tries to intervene. The movie shows her objecting to this whole regime.
It is try, yeah.
She argues with Joseph, telling him that Michael is a small child. She says he has a long way to go with his studies, and he has a right to an independent life, to play sports, to just get a basic education. But Joseph is completely unyielding. His philosophy, which the narrator quotes directly, is pretty chilling.
What did he say?
He says, in order to get something, you have to give up something.
Wow.
Yeah. He explicitly states his goal is to make his sons famous singers, and he views Michael's voice purely as a tool for progress.
That phrase is the ultimate transactional view of human life.
Right.
But consider the asymmetry of that transaction. Joseph is enforcing a deal where he decides what is gained: fame, money, prestige, and Michael pays the cost of what is given up.
His childhood, his freedom.
Exactly. His identity.
Yeah.
Joseph views Michael's immense talent not as a beautiful gift to be nurtured, but as machinery to be optimized for maximum output.
It reminds me of trying to run a high-performance engine without ever changing the oil.
That's a great analogy.
Joseph is revving Michael's output to the absolute red line, but completely denying him the basic required maintenance of play and rest.
Yes, completely.
It's almost like a toxic, modern startup culture where Joseph is running a family incubator and treating his own children as venture capital investments.
Oh, yeah.
Every hour they spend not practicing is seen as a negative return on investment, which makes me wonder, at what point does a parent stop being a parent and become purely a manager?
It happens the moment conditional love replaces unconditional love.
Oh, wow.
Right? In a healthy family dynamic, a parent loves a child simply for existing. In this managerial dynamic Joseph created, he values his sons specifically for what they can produce.
Right.
If you don't hit the high notes perfectly, if you don't nail the choreography, you literally lose your value and your safety within the household. It is a terrifying environment for a developing brain.
And Michael, absorbing all of this immense pressure, finds an escape route. But because he is physically trapped inside, the escape is entirely internal. The video essay points out that on holidays, during the very rare moments he isn't forced to practice, Michael retreats entirely into the story of Peter Pan.
Oh, Peter Pan.
Yes. He reads the books obsessively. He is deliberately, consciously trying to keep the child inside him alive because his actual physical childhood is being erased by his father.
The choice of Peter Pan is incredibly revealing here.
How so?
Well, J.M. Barrie's original story is about a boy who literally refuses to enter the adult world.
Right. He won't grow up.
Exactly. For Michael, growing up doesn't mean gaining freedom. Growing up means fully entering the harsh, transactional, punishing world of Joseph's music business.
Oh, man.
So by clinging to Peter Pan, he's trying to build a psychological fortress around his innocence. But here is the danger of that coping mechanism.
Which is?
You cannot permanently freeze your own psychological development.
Because nature eventually takes its course.
Exactly, but in heavily distorted ways. Denying a child normalcy doesn't eliminate their fundamental need for it,
It just bottles it up.
Right, it merely delays it. If you aren't allowed to be a silly, carefree child at 8 years old, you will likely try to reclaim that exact same childhood at 28 or 38.
Wow.
But when you try to act like an 8-year-old at 38, the adult world finds it confusing, off-putting, or even dangerous.
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
This suppressed need for play sets the stage for almost every major controversial life choice Michael makes decades later.
So he's trapped in this pressure cooker. But you can't suppress human expression entirely. A tiny, really fascinating rebellion was starting to form. Yeah. And what's incredible is that it wasn't forming in his voice, which Joseph heavily monitored. It was forming in his feet.
The body will always find a way to express autonomy when the voice is co-opted.
Absolutely. So let's look at how that actually played out. The Jackson 5 are performing at these small local clubs.
Right.
And Michael starts doing this special foot dance. He's gliding and moving his feet in a way that is so uniquely his own, totally unscripted.
The origins of the moonwalk, basically.
Exactly. And the audiences absolutely lose their minds for it. The source tells us they loved it so much that grown adults were literally throwing coins at his feet on the stage. Now, if you're managing an act, you want crowd engagement, right? You'd think Joseph would be thrilled.
You would think so, yeah, from a purely logical business perspective. But Joseph's reaction isn't about business.
Yeah.
It's about absolute dominance.
Right, because the source details that when they get home, Joseph reacts with extreme violence. He beats Michael with a belt.
It's horrible.
He is furious, and he explicitly forbids Michael from doing this foot dance ever again. Joseph insists that the audience's attention must be squarely on Michael's ears and his voice, not his feet.
Right.
Why on earth would a manager beat his lead star for getting the crowd riled up?
Because Joseph didn't invent the foot dance.
Oh.
Joseph trained the voice. Joseph owns the voice. The feet are Michael's independent, spontaneous creation.
Wow, yeah.
When the audience throws coins at Michael's feet, Joseph doesn't see profit. He sees a direct threat to his authority.
He sees independence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He sees the audience validating an aspect of Michael that Joseph does not control. He beats Michael to extinguish that spark of independence, to remind him that the only acceptable way to gain applause is through the asset that the father built.
It's just devastating. He's literally beating the autonomy out of him. But that spark survives.
It does.
Fast forward to 1970. The Jackson Five are performing at the Regal Theater, and this is a massive turning point.
A huge one.
A spectator in the crowd sees the sheer, undeniable talent on stage and hands them a card. It's for a man named Barry Grody, a massive music producer, and his assistant, Susie.
This is the moment the airtight seal on Joseph's controlled ecosystem is finally broken. The outside world has made contact.
And what a contact it is. They go to the recording studio, and Barry Grody makes an offer directly to Michael. He tells him he wants to record a solo song, just Michael front and center. And then Barry gives Michael a piece of direction that is the exact polar opposite of everything Joseph has ever screamed at him.
This part is so crucial.
Barry tells Michael, quote, "Be completely free to sing and dance like yourself."
Be completely free. I mean, those three words must have sounded like a completely alien language to a child whose only experience with performance was tied to the threat of physical violence.
Oh, absolutely. The narrator notes that Michael is incredibly nervous at first. He's probably, waiting for the belt to come out.
Yeah, bracing for impact.
But then, given that explicit permission, he just lets go. He sings, he dances, he unleashes everything he's been holding back.
It's an explosion of talent.
Barry is completely fascinated. He looks at this kid and predicts, right then and there, that Michael is going to be a massive star across the whole world.
And he was right.
He was. But Barry does something else, something that might be even more important. He doesn't just treat Michael as a trained monkey to perform a track. He teaches him.
Yes, the democratization of the process.
Exactly. He shows Michael how studio production actually works. He brings him behind the mixing board, explains how tracks are layered, how the engineering shapes the sound.
Right, treating him as a peer.
He treats this young boy like a true artistic collaborator. And when it's time to leave, Joseph comes to collect Michael.
Oh boy.
Before walking out the door, Michael does something that absolutely infuriates his father. He walks over and hugs Barry Grody goodbye.
We really need to unpack the psychology of that hug because it is profound.
Go for it.
A physical embrace from a child is a transfer of trust. In one single afternoon, Barry Grody provided a safe environment, emotional validation, and intellectual education.
Everything Joseph didn't do.
Exactly. He empowered Michael. Joseph ruled entirely through fear, restriction, and punishment. Barry led through liberation.
Wow.
For Michael, that hug was an acknowledgement that he had just experienced what healthy mentorship and perhaps what healthy fatherhood actually feels like.
It is profoundly tragic that a music producer, a guy literally running a commercial business.
Basically a stranger.
Yeah, a stranger, acted more like a supportive, nurturing parent to Michael in a few hours than his actual biological father did his entire life.
It is the great tragedy of his life, but it's also the catalyst for his genius.
How so?
Look at the two competing philosophies here. Joseph's restrictive, fear-based mentorship created discipline. It created a technically proficient, tightly harmonized vocal group.
Right.
But Barry's empowering mentorship is what unlocked the global icon. By giving Michael permission to use his feet, to dance, to be his authentic self, Barry didn't just record a pop song. He released a cultural phenomenon.
They handed him the keys.
He handed Michael the keys to his own artistry.
And the results were immediate and staggering. The source tells us the first song drops ABC.
An absolute classic.
It skyrockets, hitting what the narrator calls the top 104 in the world. It's an absolute blaster of a track that just changes the cultural landscape.
Yeah.
Because of that wild success, by 1971, the family becomes incredibly rich. They shift from that cramped, tense little house in Gary, Indiana, into a massive, sprawling villa.
Complete lifestyle change.
Total change. Michael is no longer just a talented kid. He is a rising global superstar.
The financial dynamic shifts entirely here, too.
Right.
Because Joseph's justification for the abuse was always, I am doing this to make us successful. We have to suffer to get out of poverty.
The ends justify the means.
Exactly. Well, now they are out of poverty. They are wildly wealthy. The stated goal has been achieved.
Right.
But notice what doesn't change the control. The control doesn't loosen one bit.
Right, because the control was the point all along. But you can't keep a global phenomenon in a golden cage forever.
No, you can't.
By the late 70s, Michael possessed the one thing Joseph couldn't completely insulate him from: immense financial and cultural leverage, which leads us to a massive structural shift in his life.
The enmeshment begins to crack.
Wait, enmeshment, break that down for me. What does that actually look like in a family's day-to-day life versus, a healthy relationship?
Sure. Enmeshment is a psychological term for a family system where personal boundaries are completely diffused.
Okay.
In a healthy family, the parents and the children have distinct identities. They support each other, but they are separate people.
Right.
In an enmeshed family, everyone is tangled up in a single emotional and, in this case, financial blob.
A blob. That's a great visual.
Michael's personal identity as a young man, his role as a son and brother, and his professional career as a pop star were all tied into one tightly knotted ball, and Joseph held all the strings.
So there was no boundary.
None. Michael wasn't allowed to just be Michael. He was the lead singer of the Jackson 5, managed by Joseph Jackson.
That sounds suffocating. So we jump forward 7 years. Michael is now a young adult. He meets a mega producer named Quincy John. And together, they start dreaming up a massive new solo album, which they plan to call The World. This is Michael's chance to fully step out on his own, to define himself outside of the enmeshed family unit.
A huge step.
But Joseph aggressively intervenes. When Quincy's people approach Joseph about the album, Joseph shuts it down. He demands that the other brothers be put on the album.
Of course he does.
His reasoning is absolute. He says Michael will always perform with his family. He flat out refuses to let Michael have a solo identity.
Because Joseph is terrified of obsolescence.
Really?
Think about it. If Michael goes solo with Quincy John, Joseph loses his primary source of income, yes, but more importantly, he loses his absolute authority over the family ecosystem.
Oh, wow, yeah.
He uses the concept of family loyalty as a weapon. He's essentially saying, if you leave the band, you are betraying your blood. It's a heavy guilt trip designed to maintain a professional grip.
And Michael's reaction to this block is deeply telling. He is a global superstar, a very wealthy adult, but he is initially too terrified to confront his father directly.
The fear runs deep.
It does. The source paints this incredibly poignant, almost surreal picture of how Michael copes during this stressful period. To avoid his father, he rides horses inside his massive house at night.
Let's just pause on that image for a second. Riding equestrian animals through the hallways of a mansion.
I mean, my idea of avoiding my parents in my 20s was hiding in my room with headphones on, maybe, I don't know, sneaking out a window. Not riding a literal horse through the foyer.
Right. It's an act of extreme, unimaginable wealth. But underneath that, it's an act of extreme isolation and regression.
Regression, yeah.
He is a grown man hiding in his house, avoiding the terrifying patriarch. It shows how deeply internalized the fear was. He could buy anything in the world, but he couldn't buy the courage to stand up to his dad.
So instead of talking to his family, he stays up late talking to his personal bodyguard, a man named Bill. Ironically, Joseph was the one who introduced them, but Bill becomes Michael's closest confidant. He talks to Bill about his childhood trauma, about the beatings, the torture he endured from his father, and how he desperately wants to do solo tours now.
Relying on a paid employee,